Hey y'all, my name is Tamra Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host. I'm pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability. And I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to comeback, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. This is happening. We're having a conversation. I'm pumped about it. And I'm now excited to introduce. We might share different social distancing because of our germaphobe / not germaphobe perspectives, but we both believe in the power of the Lord. We believe in the power of what He's gifted us with, and we are walking out something pretty amazing. And I am so pumped to have the opportunity to talk to Brandi Voth today, because not only is she a fellow podcaster, which I love fellow podcasters because they're extra fun to talk to, mainly because they talk the whole time. So after I shut up, she's on full speed. But I want to jump in because there's so many things that we can unpack. You guys are going to notice, and I purposely didn't wear my hat. I'm always wearing a hat. So I purposely didn't wear one so you can take center stage today with this amazing handmade. I want you to tell everything about it, and also about your podcast, about the new book you have coming out. So I have a community of women around me that I'm inspired by all the time, because we're all doing all the things. So I never feel like there is that space of, oh, I should do what she's doing, because we're all doing our own thing. But it's so beautiful to see the variations in those beautiful things. So welcome to the Fit and Faith podcast, and thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Like, I'm literally inspired by you daily. I love your work ethic and your grind, and you hustle for Jesus. I love it. It is so good. And we connected over a hat that I had on, and we were at a conference, and I had my hat that I had made. It was like my first proto hat.
It? I love that.
Yeah, and so I was just working on, when I went to that conference, I was just starting out with the idea of this social enterprise hat company. And I had the idea because I love hats, of all types. I don't really know that I've ever met a hat I don't like, but I love hats, and I also mentor traffic survivors. And so I was seeing that one of the main missing links that we have, and I mean, this is our society as a whole, one of the main missing links is that we don't have sustainable employment that attaches this marginalized groups of people to a greater purpose, or sets them up with mentorship and leadership. And so I would have these residents go through an aftercare program where I mentored them for 9 to 12 months at a time. And then when they graduated, their skills and their qualifications looked like getting a job at McDonald's or the corner drugstore, and so there was a need that I kept seeing over and over. They needed employment to attach them to purpose. And I'm a big nerd about purposeful business. So I took my love of hats and that need, and I thought, how can we help? So we started this hat company, and the residents in the house can hand stamp the leather bands to say a power word on them. And we have a variety of power words, but some of our most populars are warrior, overcomer, and enough. So I just love that people whose power has been stripped from them are then putting the power words on your hat. And so
good. It like gives you so much more authority and like desire to wear it with that confidence. And I think so often, and I've talked about confidence a lot on this podcast and with another gal that we do a collaboration with, and confidence is honestly key to power. And he, like God himself, gifts us confidence. It's just a matter of being able to open that package that's specifically designed for you. Because the way you claim confidence is going to be really different than the way I claim confidence. So I love that. When I saw you rocking that hat, there were 6,000 people in that room, and I pointed that hat out from afar, and I'm like, Mom, check out that hat. I'm searching her down. I want to know where that's from. And when I found out that you like are a part of the whole concept, I'm like, what? This is too good. So awesome.
And okay, so if you had what would your word be on your hat?
Ooh, I love that question. Illuminate.
I try to tell illuminate,
or probably, because I like how you guys have ambassador. Like I like that, like that word that has like the power behind it. It'd probably be illuminator.
Yes. I like to say, like, who would God say you are?
Yeah.
And what would he stamp on your hat? And so that's, I'm an ambassador of truth. And that's so this style is actually the ambassador hat. This is our proto flagship style. And then we're bootstrapping it, and we'll keep, once everything's back up and running as far as supply chains go, because while we're recording, obviously things are still shut down. Yeah. So once we're back up and running, we'll just hopefully grow and scale, and hopefully God just blesses it, and we're able to employ thousands of traffic survivors. Is my
amazing
dream.
So I think we talked about this briefly too when we intersected, was that I actually have connections with a local, well, I say local, they're global, but they're called the Safe House Project. And they are same thing, same concept. So I'm curious if they like are connected. They have a lot of roots within the military sector, and have done incredible. They're actually advocating to create homes and houses, safe houses across the country. And so they help trafficking victims in the aftermath as well, in order to have them in a year-long process similar to what you guys are doing. So I'll have to make sure I get that connection for you, because Brittany and her team are amazing.
Absolutely. I would love to be connected. And it's so funny because, I work with organizations at the global level, at the national level, at the local level. And it's like, everyone is connected. It's kind of a small community once you're in there. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I know this one in Nashville and this one in Washington State, just because trafficking is very across lines, right? And across borders. Yeah. And so in order for us to be able to bring an end to it and restore the survivors, we have to be really flexible and collaborate and network.
That's so good. And I think that restoration process is such a huge component of it, is that we're like, everyone's advocating for the most part against, stopping sex trafficking, but what happens after? And I know for even my own healing process that had nothing to do with that, from the same perspective, there's bits and pieces of all of us that are broken. And if we don't go into the process of healing, in the process of approaching the grieving or approaching the shame or approaching all of the things that are compounded during really scary situations like that, you end up staying and living in that shame. And therefore they are free from their trafficker, but they're never fully free. And so this process that people, and you included, help them through now gives them like the chains broken in that opportunity, but also a place to stand in their own identity and say that I have say and stake in giving back to the world in a way that was never necessarily given or was stripped from me. And I love that your hats do that.
Absolutely. It's, and it's kind of in the beginning when people first kind of realized trafficking was an issue or a problem, it was, okay, we have to go, rescue. We have to go reach these girls. And then they were like, okay, well now we're reaching them, but we have to have somewhere to put them. Right. So then there were crisis centers. And then it was, okay, this is going to take longer than like 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
So then we have aftercare homes, which is like 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And then now the movement is aftercare.
Yeah.
Because in the aftercare homes, we walk them through, I personally mentor them with overcoming limiting beliefs, setting goals, really realizing what their talents and their gifts are and their purpose in the world. And it's something that all women struggle with purpose.
So
I don't care who you are or what you've been through, but it's even more so because we along the way tend to give up on dreams, or we have people tell us that we can't do it, or what we're trying to do doesn't make sense. And so we tend to let that calling that's on our heart fall to the wayside. But when you have someone that has never been allowed to really, really just, experiment or think on a greater calling for their life, there's a whole lot of unpacking that we get to do there. And it's one of the things I'm absolutely most passionate about in life.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's cool because I additionally do retreats for women in like a mind, body, and soul restoration space. And so when I got connected with the trafficking organization locally, my goal, my heart would be to be able to host these women on these intimate retreat experiences.
I don't know what's happening.
There we go.
Okay, hang on. I don't
Y'all,
really know
technology right now.
It is like, hey, listen, I don't feel bad because the Senate address this week, literally, like the Senate address, one of the senators had a dog barking in the background and running into his office.
Yeah, don't feel bad. I'm lucky enough that I'm not at my house because otherwise my kids would definitely be in my lap. And that's okay.
Yep, I understand.
That's real life. I've had a couple of podcasts like that this season, but today, no. So it's my heart would be to be able to have retreats centered around these women where not only are they getting these practical insights and this ability to dream on a larger scale for the first time, but to just be nurtured and cared for as a woman should be, but under the loving wing of other women so that they still feel safe in that space and alongside God himself. Because Lord knows when we gather as two women in faith, that it just becomes this blanket of peace and this blanket of comfort for them, and something that they can kind of explore and understand. Because a lot of times, even in my areas of brokenness that I walk through, your question might not necessarily be, does God exist? But where are you? And why, if you're with that person over there, are you not with me? And so to really give them the example and the experience to say, he's right here, he's been here the whole time, and really walk through that process of unpacking with them in an intimate space like that would be such an honor. So such an amazing ministry in that regard that you're offering. It's so beautiful.
It would be really good. We had someone donate a retreat to the house, to the residents. And I had one girl that I mentor that she's got a little piece of my heart that I'm still, I still stay in contact with her quite frequently, but she told me when she got back from the retreat, she said, I just have to tell you, she goes, I was really nervous about going to the retreat because of my tattoos, and I was going with church people, and I didn't want church people judging me. And she said, but guess what? The first night I got there, they gave us a rose at dinner, and she had a rose tattoo on this hand, and she's like, and it looked like this. She says, the second night that we were there, she says, they gave us a necklace with this on it, and it was the heart with the crown tattoo. And she said, the third night that we were there, they had us write down all the things that bad had happened to us or that we felt guilty or shame about, and we hung them on a cross and they burned it. And she said, Miss Brandi, I fell in love with Jesus right there, and I don't have to have a man in my life.
Oh my
and I'm like,
gosh, that gives me crazy chills. That's amazing.
Every single time I tell the story, I got chills when she told me, and I get chills every time that I tell it.
It's amazing. And that's how good he is. That's how present he is. Even in the fear factor of what are they going to think?
he shows up in a way and says, it doesn't matter what they think, because I see you and I know you and you are worthy and you are beautiful. And so I love that. I want you to kind of, let's segment a little bit to this incredible book that you have, and how does that, everything that you talked about at the beginning, kind of correlate to what's in this amazing book? And I'm going to show them the cover and stuff while you're chatting.
Okay, well, thank you. So for starters, it has been a journey. And so the title is The Power Project, A Journey of Purpose. But my purpose journey personally began back in 2017. And I really just was in that place where I had some really great quick success in business, and was loving the coaching of women that I was doing in business, and helping women realize their strengths and their gifts. But I knew I was being called to something else. And I just really showed up and open hands, open heart said, here I am, God, send me. Like, whatever you have for me to do, call me and I'll answer. Like, I will take a step. And I'm a control freak, so that's kind of a big thing for me, really relinquish. But he showed up, and human trafficking was the cause that was literally placed right in front of me. And nothing I was ever interested in before. I don't have any type of background to pull me into that. And so the book journeys my 3-year process, about 2.5 years, but it's been 3 years in the making. Yeah. And it just really journeys the process of where I went from being a stay-at-home mom, and then, building a business, and then discovering advocacy and volunteer work and the podcast, and all the way up to the hat company. Yeah. We really break it down, but each chapter I give a tangible takeaway to help the reader be guided through their own journey of purpose as well, and just kind of see some steps that you can take along the process.
So cool. I love that. Can you unpack what the word power means to you?
Yes. So this was an acronym that I came up with in January of 2017 when I hosted my first retreat. And it was it 2017? No, I'm lying. January of 2018.
Okay.
When I hosted my first retreat. And I literally was like, it's the Power Project. And power stands for purpose, ownership, wisdom, empowerment, and reach. And each thing that I do, whether it is the book or the hat company or the podcast or the blog, it all falls underneath one branch of that word. And it's all about God's power at work within us. And it's all formed around Ephesians 3:20. And it's not about, I think power gets a negative connotation in our society.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when I speak to women at luncheons or retreats or conferences, I like to open with, what do you think of when you hear the word power? Mm-hmm. And typically it has to do with some guy, some man, they don't like it, it's negative. But when we really unpack it and they realize it's your gifts and your strengths and your talents that God has given you, and uniquely you, to own the purpose that you were placed on this planet for, they can stand strong and firm in that power and know the one who's called them to that.
So good. It makes me so excited, because I feel like that's really the missing link to all of these women who are in this place of, I know there's more within me, but I don't know the next step. And it circles right back to that concept of confidence. Is like, when you understand the power within you that's granted specifically to you, and you said that, it's that imprint is the word I like to use. It's your own individualized imprint from God that He has wrapped in a perfect bow and literally placed in you, within you, before you were even, birthed in your mom's womb, is to know that that is uniquely yours, and also yours to be able to cultivate alongside God. When He gives you a gift, He doesn't expect that you're going to unwrap it all in one setting. Like, this is a life's journey. This is a process. And it's knowing that power, even in the times of failure, you're failing forward into the unpacking of more of that purpose. And those things are intentional as well. And so it's a matter of mindset, when it comes to saying yes to understanding your purpose and claiming your power. So tell them how you, through this Power Project experience, where has like mindset or like the mind, body, soul space really like been beneficial for you to know?
So I will start out saying that I am a person that was raised by like the OG of mindset. Like I had,
That's awesome.
like my grandpa was all about mindset. My dad was all about mindset. And it was like, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. You know, we don't say can't, we don't say we're bored. Like we just always like entertain ourselves in our mind and push ourselves further, right? And do whatever we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I have had this mindset all along, and I didn't really realize how it was lacking in the female community, primarily as far as growth mindset and women that really just believed in themselves. And so when I started that first Power Project retreat, the idea behind this was that I wanted to teach the whole element of the Power Project through my physical, spiritual, mental, emotional well-being. And I love yoga. Yoga is one of my favorite things ever, because it's like the only time that I'm going to sit still and be quiet.
Yeah.
And it's my opportunity to listen to God for a minute instead of talking to him. So I kind of kicked this idea around with a few girlfriends about hosting a retreat where we focused on self-care and personal development and just mind, body, soul, spirit. And it was beautiful. And I saw that there was such a need for that. So that's always incorporated into everything that I do, because when one area of those is out of whack, I know that all of my areas are out of whack. I know that when I start experiencing anxiety and fear and worry and doubt, I know that it is almost directly correlated to the fact that I haven't been in the Word, feeding my spirit. I haven't done my yoga and meditation and given myself a time to just breathe and listen. Yeah. Or I know that I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not eating well. And so it just all comes together and aligns, because we are a spiritual being in a physical body. Yeah. And God created every single bit of that. Yeah. So it only makes sense that all of that works together in harmony or in chaos.
Right. That's so good. I love to look at it from that perspective, because I think often, and I love that you specifically love yoga. I like it once in a while, but I like hot yoga or vinyasa, because I'm like you in the run. I'm like, I gotta move. This is too slow. Like I can't take it. And so I know that mine is just like hardcore high intensity workouts is my version of yoga, because that's the space that I'll be with Jesus. Even if there's loud music pumping, like I'm talking to God. And so I really wanted to incorporate all versions of it. And yoga, when I did my first retreat, was something that I had people actually reach out to me about and said, I'm really curious how as a Christian you're advocating for yoga. And I was like, oh girl, you are looking at it from the whole secular mindset. Like it's just yoga. Like stop looking at it from this perspective that like you're a spiritual being. You actually are a spiritual being. Stop looking at it from a perspective that, it's hocus pocus. Well, there's a lot of mystery and to Jesus. And so I go there when I'm experiencing yoga, when I'm in my space of meditation, and it's not about like any of the things or that people might see from a secular perspective. We as Christians have the ability to see with God's lens, or you can trade that and be blinded and shielded, right? And so when my scales were revealed and I was able to open that veil to who Jesus is, we could take anything and spin it for enemy or for the evil or for the bad of. I mean, even something like social media can be viewed as a negative space. It's how you approach it with a good open heart, right?
Oh, I have this conversation that have had this conversation, and they've said, well, I don't really feel like I can do yoga, as a Christian. And there's this whole hesitation around it, even like when we're not talking about Christian versus secular. Like there's just people that are like, I don't know if I've never done it. I don't know if I want to do it. And so anytime that we do it, first off, I'm like, look, it's beginner. Like, we're going to do super calm things. I'm not going to have you like doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But then also, one of my friends does holy yoga. And she opened me up to that world. And it is all, your whole flow is set to scripture. And the breathing and the slowing of the breath is set to scriptural references. And it is amazing. But the best way that she told me how to just present it to people that may have a little trepidation about it. She says, because I know I personally, my spiritual walk with God got so much closer after, excuse me, it's allergy season in Texas. So
is that a thing?
We have, So she said, one of the things that you really people need to realize, because both she and I got a closer, deeper spiritual walk with God through yoga. And she said, when you pray, and we're taught to pray, and of course we should be in constant prayer. We're talking to God. We're talking to God. We're projecting upwards, right? But when we meditate and when we do Shavasana and when we still our mind and we calm our soul, we listen to God. And literally I've had some of the most clearest revelations that have come to me, because it's the only time that I'm truly just slowing down, calming my mind, opening my heart, and just listening to what it is that he has to give me.
Yeah, so beautiful. It's so good. And how blessed were you to be in connection with people who already had this mindset strength and this mindset coaching, even to you when you were little. Like, I'm just now unpacking this in the last 6 years of motherhood, and the importance of what I'm learning isn't just meant for me as a grown woman, especially not just in the business mindset or entrepreneurial space. Like, our kids need this imparted to them right now, like yesterday, multiple days before that. And so they're living in this space, in this world that is truly constantly trying to attack their mind. And we know that as well. And so giving them these tools that we're learning at such a young age is speak about power, empowering to these young children. So neat that you had that early on.
It makes or breaks a person. I firmly believe that as I've done more and more coaching and mentoring, and I had to go through my self-growth that I had to go through, was realizing that not everyone had the same mindset that I had. And realizing that not everyone believed in themselves, and realizing that not everyone was willing to step out in fear and choose faith over fear. And I certainly did not navigate that correctly in the beginning when I first started working with women, because I so badly wanted them to see what I saw in them that I was frustrated that they didn't see it. And I didn't know how to coach it or teach it. It took me really understanding what it looks like to work with someone that no one's ever told them that they can do whatever they set their mind to. And I realized that the difference is the people that are built up from an early age with a support system that says you're going to be a leader and you can do anything you set your mind to, versus someone who doesn't hear it until much later in life. And it's not that you can't develop that mindset, but it's just so many people are walking around with limited mindsets because they don't know any different. And if they can hear the sound of my voice, it is my sole mission for them to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that they can do all things through Christ who strengthens them.
Yeah, so good. I'm so excited for your message to just continue to ripple effect into the world, because it's very aligned with mine. And so often when it's like a women in community space there, and even in men, I think there's that competitive nature of oh my gosh, they're doing exactly what I'm doing. And that's literally you write down what you're doing, and I'm like, this is so awesome, because I don't live in Texas, and I don't have brown hair, and I don't have the story. I didn't have a grandpa that coached me in mindset. So all of our stories, this is where I want you guys to hear, all of our individual powers, all of our individual imprints have such purpose in the world, and God might gift us the same unique passions with exact purpose for things like this to happen. For you to link arms with a sister, for you to link arms with a brother and say, this is our mission, let's keep going, and know that you are touching people in your own dynamic way it's empowering in and of itself. Because if nobody was doing what I was doing, I would think, maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing, or maybe I'm completely at a loss here and this isn't something that God has not also whispered to somebody else. Like, the world, it needs this, y'all. It needs this message. It needs this mindset shift. It needs this understanding of mind, body, and soul alignment in order for us to really have the ability to take hold of what God has promised us. Because if you are out of whack, like you said, living in that space of chaos, it's really hard, and I know from experience, to stay on the vision track of what He's promised you. And everything else kind of falls out of alignment in that regard. So tell us about a moment or a time in your life where, even knowing these things, you felt like kind of off-centered, out of alignment, unable to take the next step, which gives you probably a lot of empathy for how you coach people now.
Okay, so I'm going to give you like 3 pretty recent instances, because as you're talking, I'm like, I need to share this, because
let's hear it.
I am the biggest, like, let's link arms as girls and go do this advocate in the whole world. And I constantly coach collaboration over competition. And it doesn't matter if someone has a similar story, there is a certain audience that will receive your unique story.
So good.
So I started my journey before a mutual mentor of ours, Rachel Hollis, started hers. And I didn't know who she was. I had no clue who she was. And I was into writing the book at this time, doing coaching, vlogging, and I started having people telling me about her. And I was like, okay, so, I grab her book and, okay, a lot of people have told me to go check this chick out because, we have some similarities or something. Yeah. And so I start reading the book, and at first, so I was raised Pentecostal also, and I was just like, oh my gosh, look at all these similarities. This is awesome. And she's saying the things that I want to tell women, right? This is so cool. And then I, tuned into the podcast and listened to the podcast, and I did all the things until that day that, like, Satan wakes up and just slaps you upside the head. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't write a book, because she pretty much just told women all the things that I want to tell women, and she's already done it. So that's cool. All right, that's cool. So instead, I'm just going to cheer her on. And I pressed pause for so long on my book because I felt like it had already been done, and it hadn't, but now when it's done, in hindsight's 2020, they are completely different books, right? I mean, they have similar underlying themes, but her story is unique to her, and it's for people to read and process. And then my story is the one that God gave me that someone needs to hear, whomever needs to hear it. Yeah. It's given to me for a reason to reach that person. So I had to be the student there and talk to myself like I would have a mentee and say, look,
same thing for me. To the point where I'm talking to my husband, she wrote my book. This is the book that I've already am writing. What is happening? And he's like, that's a good thing. That means that the message has purpose, especially if it's a New York Times bestseller. We can only hope that your book does the same, right? And I'm like, but I feel like I'm going to copy her. It's going to come out and people are going to be like, she's doing the same thing. And he's like, your book doesn't even have, follow the same thing. It's not even talking about unpacking lies. I'm so confused why you think it's the same. And I'm like, probably because it resonates in our heart of hearts so much, in that same desire for people to understand their worth and understand their value, and know that because of our stories, that's what catapults us into this place of saying, sister, I'm shaking you, wake up, there's so much goodness here. So I went through I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was next to the pool, laying out, finishing the last chapter, and I was like, oh, oh my gosh, all the work I put in the last few months, like this is horrible. And same thing, I pressed pause as well. So interesting that you had that same experience, but also so purposeful that God like continued to say, no, sister, like this is for you. Daughter, this is yours. Keep going.
Yeah, I actually have a whole chapter in the book about that and detailing all of that. And then I give some tangible takeaways for when you find yourself in that competition trap, in that comparison trap, how to step out of that. So yeah, God had to step in through a few people and say, hey, write the book.
Yeah. And it's funny, by the way, I still hear people all the time when I mention Rachel Hollis, like to us, she's like this mentor, she's the mogul, right? And other people are like, I don't know who that is. I'm like,
who? I'm sorry, who? I'm like, what? What just happened?
Do you not know Oprah? I'm so confused. But she's not there to everyone else. It's just the people who follow her closely. So I love that there's space for all of us. God gives us grace for our space, and all of our space is intentional. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been born.
Yes. And
so go in. You're going to say number 2.
So on the number 2, you and I actually have discussed this via email. A time that I was stuck was recently with everything that happened. And I didn't even realize, aside from obviously right when we were about to, manufacture hats, that came to a halt. And literally my book was scheduled to launch March 19th at a personal development conference in LA that I was speaking at. Right. And I had book tour, engagements like set up. I had speaking engagements throughout the year. And the week before, like 7 days before I was supposed to fly out, the conference was canceled. And so then I just I froze. I was like, okay, the entire year speaking engagements are canceled. The book tour is canceled. The conference is canceled. And then now the printer's not printing books. And do we launch digitally? What do we do? Right. And maybe we're going to go broke. Maybe we're going to die. Maybe we're going to go broke and die. Like, it was it was everything hit. And I am one of the most like motivated people you'll ever see. I'm always constantly like new ideas and working on things, and my mind never stops. My mind's always spinning. And I went into this really, really like shutdown mode. I continued doing my podcast each week. I continued sending a newsletter out each week. And that was about all that I had in me. Yeah. I had so many projects in the works that I couldn't even wrap my brain around. And I finally realized, because I started thinking, I'm responding to this in the same way that I did when my grandpa passed away. Like I'm in the mornings, I don't want to get out of bed. At night, I can't sleep. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like I have direction in life. I feel like there's no point to any of it, Yeah. And so I realized I walked through a grieving process with it. I walked through grieving life as it was before, and grieving all of my, accomplishments that were going to be taking place. And so in that, what I did personally, because I realized like I can't continue like this forever. Yeah. I can't just keep like laying in bed in the morning and being like, meh, who cares? There's a global pandemic. What's it matter? Right?
True.
And so I just got really, really, really deep in the word, and took walks through nature and talked with God. I would carry like this journal and my Bible, and I would walk our property, and I would find a spot to sit and write and read and pray and lament. And in that, I have literally, my walk with God is so much closer through all of this. Wow. So just because you find yourself stuck in that place doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay in that place. There may be some rest and some respite that you do in that time, but I believe that God is always calling us further and deeper. And whether that looked like going on in the same direction that I've always gone in and spinning my wheels, or whether that just looked like getting really, really intentional with him. And through that, I've been able to develop a whole new course and program, all inspired by all the scripture that I read and the talks that I had with God and what I realized he was calling me to next. So just because you're stuck doesn't mean you have to stay stuck. And that brought me to the final one, which is I'm actually today, tomorrow, and Saturday, I'm presenting at it's called the Purpose Project Summit, and it's a virtual summit.
Okay.
There's 30 presenters.
Nice.
And this is another thing like you and I did with Rachel.
Yeah.
I had this idea. I started thinking, man, I have a lot of people that really believe in purpose.
Yeah.
So I want to get these women together, and we want to create like a virtual, who cares if we can't go speak on stages, right?
Like we'll make our own stage.
We're going to do a virtual summit. We're going to pour into people. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then, I kid you not, I was invited to the Purpose Project Summit as a presenter within 24 to 48 hours.
That's so good. So you're like, okay, I don't have to design it. I'll go.
All right. Thanks, God.
That's so good.
I think when we see these things and when we keep getting these nudges from God, right, it doesn't mean that we don't get to do it because someone else did. It means that there's a call for it. Yep. There's a need for it.
Absolutely.
And God wants all of us out there talking about it.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of what has happened, and like taking church out of the church and putting the church online, right? Where people see it and there's an ability to jump in without somebody seeing you walk through the doors, or you having to get ready in your perfect Sunday dress or Sunday best. Like, you get to just be in the comfort of your own home and like hear God and worship with people and do it on your own accord. And yes, there's an importance to being in the church together, but my mom always told me when I was little, and sometimes I would take it wrong, almost like a point of pride. And so I've had to really work with it. But the concept of copying is a compliment, and knowing that like God purposely created these similarities as a compliment to the kingdom. And so it's not take it as a compliment to yourself. It's not pat your back, you had a really good idea, because we know nothing has not been done, right? It's already all been done or said, but has it been said through your voice, through your unique story? And to know that that's why you're here, is to create the compliment of the kingdom. So I'm writing that one down because that just came out as we're talking. But
no, you need to write that down.
So
and I think that a good like piggyback on that is that, look, the Gospels are all different versions of the same story, right?
Good. So good.
Because God knew that there were ways that Matthew was going to tell it different than Mark, and there were ways that it was going to reach people in different ways. Yeah, so the Gospels are all the exact same story, just told differently.
I love that analogy. So simple too, like so people can grasp hold of that. They get that, especially if they're in their Christian faith. So I want to kind of go and go back based on what we're talking about right now. You had mentioned that you were raised in the Pentecostal church, similar to Rachel Hollis. I actually was not at all. And yet when I came into like my deep need for Jesus, the point in my life where I call it my quarter life crisis, where I had no choice but to find Jesus, right? And I found myself in a Pentecostal church, which I didn't know what that meant. I had heard like stories from my mom from when she was younger, but she was raised Southern Baptist, so very different than Pentecost, but like they all believe in Jesus. So let's always go back to there. The denominations were not Jesus made, they were man made. And so I found myself in a Pentecostal church, and it has literally changed my entire life. It was the first time I actually fully understood what it meant to be in relationship with Jesus, and is why I got my ordination and minister's license, and like literally why I am who I am today in this space. And so I want to know like what pieces of that, those roots, like are still so embedded in you today.
So I write about this in my book as well. Like one of the underlying themes is that, so I want to preface this with, both sides of my family are Pentecostal. Both of my grandmothers are Pentecostal, and old school Pentecostal, like,
long hair,
skirts and long hair and no makeup and no TV and the whole shebang. And that's how I was raised. And there are amazing like warriors of God in that religion. And there are some really great things I took from it. I just knew from a very young age that there were man-made things within the religion that did not sit with my soul. And one of them was that I felt like really just called by God to be a leader, and I didn't see that as a possibility there where I was. So that being said, like, we all love Jesus, and that works for them, and my non-denominational Bible church works really great for me. and we all love Jesus, and we're probably all going to be in heaven and be shocked that all these other people are there. Like,
That's so
I
funny.
just
That's
think
so
it's
true.
going to be so fun. Like, I think of it this way, like, so my husband was raised Catholic, and
Mine too.
my
That's
kids
so
go,
funny.
oh my gosh, yeah, see, similarities.
I know it.
And so my kids, the community they go to school in, most people are Catholic. And so this non-denominational church we go to, there's a lot of people from the community that now go with us that previously attended Catholic churches. But it's so funny because every time, like in the Sunday school class, like the first time my son walked in and his friends were like, I thought you were Catholic. And he's like, I thought you were Catholic. And
That's
and I just
awesome.
think I think that's what heaven's gonna look like. We're gonna
That's
get up there
so
and
good.
someone's gonna be like, I thought you were Baptist. I thought you were Catholic. I thought you were Jewish. What is happening?
That's so good. That's so good. I love that you brought in like the Jewish culture, because I just actually had to walk through this process in conversation with God, because I recently lost an uncle, and they are so he's like a part of my bloodline because they're married in, right? So that, not really, but really, my uncle.
Yeah.
And when he passed, and he's like a devout man of the Jewish religion, and I have always just idolized him. He is just so jovial and full of the spirit in their own way, in their own culture, and like I honestly couldn't say a bad thing about him. And when you talk about Jewish culture, you always or there's like so much comedian like components to the fact that they are, you know, stingy with their money. Well, that was not him. Like, they were very good with their money, as are all of the people in their family, based on what they believe and how they steward money well. And so it's always been something that has kind of piqued my interest, because I didn't have that like understanding as much growing up. So when we lost him just a few weeks ago during this time, which has been, you know, really hard and difficult, especially for our family who we weren't able to be there to celebrate his life, I immediately took it as a shock because it was an unexpected situation. And then I started wrestling with God, like, but wait, like, he is yours. Like, I know you called him yours. Like, he's left a legacy in so many people's lives. And like, what does that look like? And is he going to be there? And is he not going to be there? And like wrestling with these emotions. And I reached out to my best friend, who's also a pastor. And she said, you know, Tamra, like, God has his heart. God knew his heart. Like, it doesn't matter about what secular, you know, what the world claims them as. Like, he is a believer in God. And so who are we to decide where he goes? And to understand that is a whole nother realm that I don't know. But I know his heart was whole, and I know that his legacy is true. And so I can't wait for that moment where I get to see him in heaven, because I've come to the belief that he is there, and Jesus assured me that he's holding him and holding his family and all of the people that I love so dearly. So I love that visual, and I celebrate alongside you all of the different denominations, and my family goes to a non-denominational church now. And though I just feel like there's something about the understanding of the Holy Spirit that I never received in any other church. And because you have that power within you to take that with you wherever you go, it doesn't matter if you were in a temple. It doesn't matter if you were in a mosque. It doesn't matter if you were in Yogaville. Like, wherever you are, you carry that. You are the church where you go. And so I'm so grateful that you have that experience, and that you're bringing it into so many areas of your power projects that are affecting the world the way they are. So thank you for being you and showing up and doing so unashamedly in who he's called you to be.
Well, thanks. And I think that I think my absolute favorite thing about the Pentecostal religion was the music. And so I think, like, I try to tell my husband, like, music moves me. It moves my soul. Like, worship music moves my soul, but I can also like get down with other music and I can still feel Jesus in my soul. Like, so I think and that's all, like you say, like the presence of the Holy Spirit and knowing that and being in touch with that is, I am very, very grateful for having that experience and knowing that from a very young age.
So tell me real quick before we pop off, says I'm so curious, if your family was so rooted in that, how did they perceive you cutting your hair or wearing makeup or coming into fashion? And like, that's like a thing in and of the Christian culture that like, I think people need to let go of and embrace, but that's another whole conversation. So like, explain that process with us.
Well, my my dad was raised in it. And then my mom, her whole family, came into the church when she was a teenager. And so my parents both, they didn't necessarily align with all of the legalism within the church. And so while we went, they kind of always had their own questions, and they were pretty good about, by the time I was in 6th grade, like I got my first, pair of jeans, and my grandparents almost fell over. Like my grandma had 4 boys. I was her first girl. I was the first granddaughter. And then I showed up in jeans in 6th grade. And,
awesome story.
And so of course, being the oldest grandchild and the first one in the family to really like take stands and cut my hair and pierce my ears, it wasn't easy by any means. And, my grandma is my favorite. I love, and I think I'm her favorite person on the face of the planet, but we are 2 very different people. Like, she is so like meek and humble and mild and submissive and sweet and prayer warrior and soft-spoken, like nothing that I am. Nothing. Like, she is all the things that the Bible tells you a woman is supposed to be, right?
I love it.
And so we went through a process, but then, little by little, all my cousins got older, and some of them went a little crazy for a little while. And so then,
she's like, thank you. Stay this way. She grasped hold. That's good.
But it's really great now, because I'm in a place now where, although both my grandmothers and I have different opinions about just the structure of things here on this planet, and serving God, we have a really deep connection in our spirituality and in our love for Jesus, and in the fact that we can, pray for one another and send each other scripture and discuss the Lord without getting it convoluted with being right, wrong, or indifferent.
That's so cool. I hope to have relationships like that with my grandbabies, because I was not put into a family with similar dynamics, as that is my dynamics of our family are so drastically different. So a generational shift is happening in our home, and I'm so grateful for that and expectant for what I hope to, bleed into their lives later. So I love that you're honoring that and honoring them as they've done that for you. It's really cool. So before we end, because we're closing in on time here, I want people, one, to know where to find you, because you have your own podcast too, and I'm excited for them to listen, because it is, again, power.
So the podcast is The Power Project, and it is on any platform you listen to podcast on: iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the whole shebang.
Yep. Awesome. And then where do you hang out most? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? Have you jumped into TikTok yet?
Okay. So great stories. For starters, I have such a love-hate with Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, I love that Instagram, we can do like pictures and inspiration and like, some great copy, and we don't have to get caught up in like politics and nastiness.
Right.
But I haven't really found my niche on Instagram with communication and genuine conversations.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm like, get to know you, it's Facebook.
Yeah.
So I kind of think like Facebook's like my dinner party, where like I would have like a group of friends there, but like maybe not everybody knows each other, but I know everybody.
Right. I love that analogy.
And so like Instagram's more like a conference that, I'm going to speak at, but I don't really know everyone personally.
That's good.
And then TikTok.
Have you done it?
Oh yeah. I'm viral on TikTok, girl.
Are you? Oh my God, I gotta check it out.
But let me just tell you, I'm going to give everyone a word to TikTok's where I literally show up and I just am kind of fun. Like, it's like Facebook's like, you get real stripped down mom, wife over here. I'm going to tell you all my good, bad, and ugly. Instagram, I'm going to like encourage, inspire, and motivate you. TikTok, I'm going to do stuff that I think is fun. And I was a theater kid, so I sometimes dress up as my teenage kids and make fun of them on there. And I went viral. Like, I think I got like 30,000 followers, but I got like,
awesome.
I think I got like 20,000 followers in a week. But here's the thing about TikTok, y'all, that you got to know. if you go viral, prepare your hearts, because the majority of the platform is 12-year-old girls, and they think we're too old to be there, and they are mean, like mean, nasty, mean. They've given me like all kinds of unsolicited parenting advice that I will one day make a TikTok video out of.
Yes.
They referred to me as Karen multiple times, and I don't know what Karen did to make all the children mad, but she made them all mad.
That is so funny. I can't wait to watch it. I literally told my husband one day on the way to work, because I was listening to Gary Vee, and I love Gary Vee, even his vulgarity. And I'm like, Gary Vee says I need to be on TikTok. My husband's like, you should probably be on TikTok. I'm like, shoot, I don't want to be on another social platform. So I was like, I'm going to make a TikTok video by the end of the day. So I get on there and I'm like, I have no idea what's happening right now, but I'm a really good dancer. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to make a dancing TikTok business thing. And I was like, this is bull crap. I can't do it. I hung up. I was like, not even happening. And so the only time I'm on TikTok is if I'm scoping out my nieces, who are the 12-year-old girls that are probably being mean to you. So I'm really sorry on their behalf. But I want so badly to be able to figure it out. So you might have to give me some TikTok advice after we hang up.
Well, just so you know, during quarantine, because I mean, I took a break because literally, like, I had some hardcore cyberbullying that I'm tough. I am strong.
And it was
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm back in 7th grade, but the girls are so much worse.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah, so I took a little break and I pumped the brakes for a minute. And then, so then I got back over and I was like, look, I'm just going to put like positivity, inspiration, and things that I think are funny.
Yeah.
And the fun part about TikTok, you can literally like throw spaghetti at the wall and it might possibly stick. Like you don't have to think it out. Like you got to think out, like, I don't do any dance challenges or any of the junk that the kids do because
it's a lot.
I could bust out my old school cheerleading dances if we needed to, you know. But in the quarantine, there's a lot of people our age that have gotten on the platform because they were bored at home. So you'll find more of your people there now.
Okay, all right, I'll try it out. Between Brandi and Gary Vee, it says I have to do it. I guess I gotta do it. All right, y'all. You might see me on TikTok soon, but go check out Brandi on her podcast, The Power Project. Go check her out on Facebook if you want to be dining with her. I know I do. I'm coming to Texas soon, so we'll have to do that. And also check out the virtual summit. Can people still jump in to listen this weekend?
Yes, like it's going to be, and actually like they had a little technical difficulties, so it's not just us. So they extended a day through Sunday, I think. Okay. And then if you get the it's totally free, but then if you get the all access pass, you can have it forever to watch. So I can shoot you my link that you can like put it in the comments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I've got it posted on my Power Project page right now, as well as my Instagram page. The Instagram is just Brandi Voth, BrandiVoth, and then Facebook is The Power Project.
Awesome.
Over on Facebook.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to get to know you more and share all the goodness that you're putting out into the world. I am so grateful to be in community with you, and I know that this is not the last time we're going to link arms.
Oh, no. We've got something that we got to chat about here in a bit.
I love it. All right, y'all. See you later.
I'm Tamra Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not this came with trial, you guys. This came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review, send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.